Hey everyone, this is Mike and I'm back with another episode of the podcast. Sorry for the radio silence for a bit. I was out of town for about a month and didn't make the time to record the intros to the interviews that I already had previously recorded, including this one. But here I am back with a brand new episode. And in this episode, I interview Nick Cheadle, who's a fitness influencer and entrepreneur who has built a huge following on Instagram. I think it's like 600,000 people now, and then leveraged it to build a thriving coaching and education business. Now, I wanted to do this interview because I'm often asked about how to use social media better, how to get more out of it, how to make more money from it, how to build a bigger following, and so forth. And honestly, I don't have great answers, or at least I didn't. I have some better answers now thanks to the interview. But I didn't because I'm notoriously bad at social media. Honestly, it's just a matter of time. I put a lot of time into other things that help build my businesses and following, but not very much time into social media. So Nick, on the other hand, is very good at it. He puts a lot of time into social media. So I wanted to pick his brain on a whole host of things like how he proves to people that he's worth following, how he has gone about crafting his personal brand and his personal message, how he sells things without being annoying, what types of pictures tend to do best and how he creates them, how he drives engagement and why that's so important, and much, much more. So if you are interested in learning how to get more recognition in business through social media and through Instagram in particular, then you should definitely check out the interview. I think you're going to find it helpful. So with that, here it is. Hey, Nick, it's nice meeting you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure, man. Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm excited to have you on because you're going to be talking about something that I haven't talked about much, at all, really. I haven't written about it. It's something that is, for my crowd, is going to be new information, and I thought you'd be a great guy to reach out to because you're doing a very good job at it, and that is social media, but specifically using social media to build a business and using it as a core pillar of a business. And really, how I look at it and what you're doing is it's very much part of your brand, and it's very much a representation of a lifestyle. It's not just like, here are some random images, which is more like my social media, which is shit. So I'm going to be taking some notes too. So if I'm just going to kind of just leave it at that and just kind of pass you the ball. And if you want to, kind of take us through a bit of the timeline of from when you started to in not knowing anything, and what were the key lessons throughout your journey to where you are now, I'm all ears.
Yeah, too easy, man. Too easy. Well, firstly, thank you. That's a very kind introduction. I appreciate it. I don't know if I'm an expert on social media, but I can certainly share with you some of the things that I happen to have learned over the last few years as a consequence of doing it. The results, whatever you want to say, the results are the results. It's going okay.
There are a lot of experts that don't have your results, so.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that's a fair point. And I guess so. I've been in the industry for. I'm actually coming up to the start of my 10th year now, which I find mind blowing in itself. Because consider I don't think I'm that old. Not yet, anyway. So
I've been married for 10 years.
Wow.
I think about that. I'm like, wow, fuck, it's really been 10 years. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's when you think of things like that, it puts it into rather harsh perspective. But coming up to the start of my 10th year, so 9 years in the industry as a personal trainer, and I think I've been doing the social media thing for roughly probably 5 years, maybe 5 to 6 years. I sort of began to dabble in it maybe a little bit earlier than that, but obviously put my foot down around that sort of 5 year ago mark.
Okay.
Basically, for me, the catalyst for doing so was trying to figure out a way to better leverage my time, essentially. There's obviously only so many hours in the gym that you can do as a personal trainer before you, A, feel like you don't want to be in there anymore, and B, just want to do something else. So for me, obviously earning more money and connecting with more people and being able to leverage my time better was the main catalyst for trying to figure out the whole social media thing. And I think at the time as well, to begin with, if I'm being honest, there was probably a little bit of ego attached as well. I saw a lot of guys on social media at the time with large followings, and I thought that sounds pretty cool. So
It's the shiny object.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at the time that obviously played a part in it. Trying to figure out like, how can I get there? How can I be one of those guys? And how can I be seen the way that I'm seeing some of these guys myself? So, for me, when I first began my social media, I wasn't really sure how to go about it. And I was certainly guilty of, being one of those guys that just posts countless motivational photos. And if I had my time again, I go kick myself in the face because.
And by that, do you mean like pictures of you or just like random quotes and shit?
No, like random quote pictures.
Okay.
Like just like. Yeah.
You still see that all the time. Where I see these accounts where I'm like, why are you doing this? Like it's not, there's no way this is going to work. I mean, again, I'm not one to speak on, how to make social media really work, but I know that doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. So, but at the same time, it was a learning experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important things that you can do consistently, whatever industry you're in, is whatever it is you are doing.
I'd say the positive thing is you were doing something. At least you're trying.
Yeah.
And then at least you're willing to learn.
Absolutely. And so, at that point, I was ticking things off as to what doesn't work, which means, ultimately over time, you'll get to that point where...
Yeah, that's like the Edison method, right? Just try every single possible way, and eventually you'll stumble into something that works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think at the time I had just started working with a business mentor because... honestly, from a business perspective, at the time, my business was not killing it. I was running maybe 20 to 30 personal training sessions per week. But I just thought that social media might be a way of putting myself out there enough that I might be able to attract more clients.
Okay. And you were thinking offline clients at the time?
I was thinking that I would like to dabble in that space.
Yeah.
I had seen a few online personal trainers at the time have success selling meal plans and training programs, and I thought that seemed way of making money and connecting with more people. So that was certainly on my mind. And then one day I just sort of said, maybe I'll just start doing this. And so I started off very basically just trying to sell, as I said, meal plans and training programs, which when I look back on them now, very poor quality product. Just it goes against everything that I stand for now. But yeah, as I said, I was working with a business mentor, and we sort of came to the conclusion that all of the information that anybody could ever need relating to fitness, health and fitness and bettering your physique is already out there. If you want to know the answer to a question, you can simply go to Google, which apparently not a lot of people know how to do, and figure out the answer to any question that you have. So I sort of thought that, well, if that information is so readily available, why not be the person that's actually bringing that information to people?
Right.
Why not be one of the first results that pops up when people search for whatever topic it is?
Right.
So I started to sort of see my social media as an opportunity to put out content and more content. And yeah, absolutely. And ultimately what that has turned into today is a means of driving traffic to other portals and other
products and services,
other opportunities to generate. Yeah, exactly right. Mm-hmm. So for me, social media first began as an opportunity to create content and just put more and more content out there. And one of the most reassuring things I've heard since is, I'm sure you're aware of Gary Vee. I remember hearing one of his talks about how he was saying, you never know which piece of content might just explode as far as virality is concerned, and which piece of content might just throw your name into the stratosphere.
Yeah, and you never know also if it might, whose lap it's going to fall into.
Exactly right.
I've met a lot of just interesting and influential people just from, they read one of my books. I mean, so many actually, or even from articles, people, and then they have a question and they email and they're like curious if I'll actually respond, and they get a response, and it turns out like that's the CEO of some $2 billion company. Like, oh well, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, I just started putting out content, and so I guess it was refreshing to hear Gary Vee say something like that, because that's sort of the approach that I ended up taking. Yeah, just because,
I think that's like something that needs to be accented. That's like a key takeaway, is to be. I'm sure you still do that. Actually, educate people. It's with your social media, as opposed to just making it about pure just narcissism. Look at me. Look at how good I look.
like that. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think I never considered myself to be. I think what most people in the fitness industry would consider themselves to be as an athlete.
Right.
I just
same. Same.
I never saw myself as that, and I think
agree.
the people that do need to take a long, hard look at themselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because chances are, if that's what they do see themselves, that
I mean how much of an athlete am I? I mean, I lift weights 4 to 6 hours a week. I mean, that's not. If that's an athlete, then I guess we have the bar set really low.
Yeah, exactly right. So for me, I guess the whole purpose behind social media was adding value. The question that I kept asking myself is, why should people follow me? Why would they follow me? Why would they keep following me? Why would they interact with what I'm putting out there?
And how do you answer that question now, of curiosity? Like, I'm sure it's something that you are now. It's still, I mean, that would be a smart question to revisit every quarter, for example, or regularly. I'm just curious what.
Honestly, I ask myself that every time before I post.
Oh, great. Well,
yeah. And ultimately, the question, is this adding value, is not always yes. However, at times, I think, due to the nature of social media, you can use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
In a way.
Where sometimes it is just about like almost. I mean, I would still say it's probably value though, because like, would you agree that? Even if it's just a vicarious experience, you know what I mean? Where like that's kind of the image and that's what it's showing, or maybe it's just like someone sees your physique and they're just like, damn, that dude looks really good, and that's motivation to go train. Or I mean, that is value. It's not as valuable as maybe some of what your idea of real value
Absolutely.
is, but at least it has something. At least it's not like a picture of your fucking Rolex watch or something, which is utterly pointless.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's exactly what I mean in regards to, is this valuable? Because now it's sort of getting to a point where my following has grown to the sort of extent that they sort of want to know more about what I do outside of fitness.
Yep. That's what I get. And like people tell me to vlog, and I'm like, okay, look, honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, my life is not interesting. I fucking go to bed at 10 o'clock. I get up at 5 a.m. I do the same thing every day. I work. I spend some time with my family. I study. I go to bed. Like, I'm telling you guys, if one vlog is every vlog. And, it's funny. I was actually saying, okay, so look, if I was going to vlog, what I would have to do is treat it like a reality television. I'd have to make shit up. I'd have to script it in a sense. And I'm surprised there aren't actually more people doing that. I see these vlogs that are just like, here's the other day, here's me eating my 8,000th bowl of oatmeal so we can go squat for the 9,000th time. I'm surprised that somebody hasn't looked at how popular reality TV is and be like, I should make a fake life for vlogs, and I'm going to make sure that it's full. I'm just going to go take a script from the Kardashian. I'm going to take their formula and rinse, repeat. Absolutely. Drama. I'm going to be dating girls. I'm going to be breaking up with girls. I'm going to have problems with everybody. I'm going to, have training problems. I'm going to have to make it interesting, guys. At least if you're going to, I mean, social media is more. These people are more about being fake than anything else. If you're going to be fake in a fucking better way. God.
Absolutely, man. It sounds like your next project is sorted. You're covered.
So I've already let those now I'll have to edit that out. So then I'll come off my blog, and then people will be like, "Oh wow, look at Mike's life, dude. That's crazy. Oh, what's going to happen on the next episode?"
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'm hijacking the conversation.
All good, man. All good. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, the majority of what I still put out or try to put out is still content. It's still informative. It's still educational in some aspect. But a lot of it now too is walking the walk, so to speak. So, social media obviously gives you that opportunity to broadcast a specific message, and you can obviously do that in a couple of ways, either through words or your actions. Ultimately, it does get to the point now where, I use the way that I look to enhance the message that I'm trying to portray.
Yep.
But, never do I really go out of my way to post a photo going, geez, I look good today. As most people
I lost motivation for selfies, man. Talking about losing motivation. I'm just like, hey guys, look, I look the same as I always do, because as you know, I'm kind of just maintaining my physique, and I'm pretty happy with things, and there are things I would like to improve, but you're not going to really see them maybe for a year. You're going to maybe be like, oh look, his lats are a little bit bigger, or his his shoulders are a little bit, he has a little bit more width up top, but that's Otherwise,
exactly
so
right.
I mean, I like, again, before, when I was looking through your stuff, I think you do a good job of that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I guess, so over time, I learned more and more about the marketing process and creating funnels and, creating free products and ultimately using those to sell paid products. And
before
now,
you get into that, can I ask you a question? Something that you said, actually.
Of course.
With your message, so like for you, what kind of message? I'm curious myself. What is do you have like have you boiled it down to like a simple? This is the kind of like what you want to represent. This is what your brand is. This is how you feel that what do you have that makes you unique beyond just your looks and your physique.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So
it's hard to compete. It's hard to compete just on looks and physique alone. I mean, yeah, you are obviously top tier, but there are a lot of other guys that are top tier too. So if that's all that you're trying to do, I think that you wouldn't be as successful as you are.
Thank you. I think on that point too, if you see this as a competition, you're probably not going to give yourself a chance of ever winning. And I think that's like probably the biggest thing that I've taken out of training myself, competing on stage, both myself and with my clients, and in life in general. If you're constantly looking at your competition and worrying about what they're doing, you're only detracting from the time you can actually spend improving what you're doing and yourself. So
I agree. It also can just be demotivating because there's always that person, whatever, no matter what your metrics are, however your whatever that touchstone is, someone's always better. And I think it's smart to always try to be stretching and improving. But to your point, if there's a point where it goes too far and it can be, especially on something where I couldn't look as good as you. Even if I had your size, we're probably around the same height. I'm 6'1", 6'2", but you have better muscle insertions, you have better genetics, and that's not. I mean, I'm not making excuses in that, but I'm not saying, it's just genetics or whatever. But just if that's what it was, if I was just like, I'm gonna try to compete with Nick in terms of looks, and try to make that my thing, I'll never get there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I think the best way you can do that is look at maybe those people and use that as motivation and inspiration for yourself.
Yeah.
I see
to become your best self, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I certainly haven't sold 500,000 copies of a book, but I hear things like that, and I think, awesome. Like that is like he's obviously put in a lot of work because I know how much work goes in behind the scenes to create something like that to get a result like that.
Yeah.
And for me, that just sort of adds fuel to the fire. That's what can be achieved.
Yeah.
How can I use that and repackage it and repurpose it for my own
totally. And I think that's an important point just on how, because it's all just in how you view it. Like, I think it's a good just character trait if instead of envy, you can use that as like be legitimately happy for somebody else. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's great that he did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it can be a positive thing for you. You know what I mean? I think it's great that you've achieved what you've achieved with your physique. And I mean, you look fantastic. That's awesome. But instead of being like, oh yeah, fuck that guy for this, that, and whatever, you know what I mean? It's totally just in how you choose to view it.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You got to. I think the more time that you can spend focusing on your own process, ultimately, the more successful you're going to be in whatever it is you're trying to set out and achieve.
Totally. So you were talking about funnels. That's when I derailed it just because I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. But that was where you're.
Yeah, no, not at all. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I now use social media for the most part to drive traffic elsewhere. So I've just become a little bit more selective with the way that I put out my content. I get into a lot more sort of email, I guess what you consider to be email marketing,
sure,
as well as creating what I would consider to be a fairly extensive blog. And from there, it's all about sort of sending people around the appropriate places to try and make sure that I'm able to maximize engagement as far as getting people on my list and being able to give them free content, and then ultimately, hopefully have them buy something from me in the future.
Totally. And a question that may be occurring to people listening is, how do you, because I've run across quite a few people that I would say my strength is, I think I'm a competent writer. I do a good job in that, and that at least it's received well. So I'm good enough in that regard. And I'm a pretty good marketer. In certain ways, I'm stronger than others, but where I'm not as strong, I have other people that are strong or work with people or whatever. But, I get emailed quite often actually from people that they're either not comfortable with kind of the marketing, like it makes them feel kind of sleazy, even if these are just ideas, that people that they have. It's their, mental models of things of like anyone that does this is this or whatever. Was that never a concern for you, or have you kind of like? I just think that people might be thinking that like they don't want to be that guy that feels like, or that girl that's like always pushing shit, and they that they have that reputation kind of thing of like, oh, just another person trying to sell his PDF or some shit.
Yeah, of course. I think there's a couple of ways to answer that. So, firstly, I think it's really important that you figure out who you are and how you want to go about things as an individual. Ultimately, the way that you sell or you write, it should be a reflection of who you are.
Right.
Now, there are multiple ways to go about doing that. And I think when I first began to get involved in the selling process, I probably got caught up in writing stuff that was a little bit too salesy for my liking. And it was actually my girlfriend that pulled me up on it at the time. She was like, "Did you write this? Or did someone else write this?" And I was like, that's not the message that I want to be sending. I don't want people to be reading stuff that I've sent them being like, did Nick write this or did someone else write this? Because, that's the last thing you want. Yeah. And I think going back
especially now, people are waiting. I mean, I at least I get this. I don't know if you get this, but I'll get people that, I wouldn't say they're rating this, but I get people that will just thank me for like not selling out in that sense of where they would have expected that by now I would be promoting 10 affiliate offers a week to my list, and I wouldn't still be answering people's emails, or I wouldn't even be working, like I wouldn't do a podcast and write articles and write books and do all this stuff because, I could just be like, driving a fucking Lamborghini around thinking I'm cool or something, you know what I mean? Instead of actually working. Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, for me, I try and do it in an authentic way now. In a similar fashion to the way that I put out my content, I try and always offer an unbiased, informative approach and allow people to make a decision for themselves. And it's more about awareness rather than here's my thing. I'm just going to sort of shove it down your throat.
Yeah, or dangle it like you want it. Come on.
Yeah. And I think there's a few gentle techniques, in regards to scarcity and those sorts of things to sort of entice people into getting it. I think. Are
there any books or any sort of trainings that you would recommend for people that have really helped you just kind of learn the basics?
To be honest, I don't do much reading anymore.
Okay, I was just curious because
I think I ended up learning a lot of stuff from the mentor that I first worked with. Okay. But in saying that, I love reading that sort of stuff. I just don't make enough time for it at the moment.
Sure. So I'll throw it out there for people that want to know a bit more about scarcity or social proof or reciprocity, those basic things. Read the book Influence by Robert Cialdini. I think that's a great primer if people want to just know some of the real fundamentals of influence, of persuading people, whether it be selling or selling people things or ideas or whatever. And of course, it can be used for good or evil. It just depends on, as the individual, but I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah. Oh, no, perfect. I think you asked before sort of how I go about the whole selling thing. I remember while I was working with said mentor, at the time I had just sort of begun my email list and, started the whole email marketing process. And I remember I got to a point where she's like, "You've been doing this for 5 months now, and not once have you put a call to action at the end of any of your emails."
Oops.
I was like, "Yeah, but I don't want to like make these people feel like I'm shoving stuff down their throat."
Yeah.
And she's like, "If you never ask anybody for anything, they're never going to give it to you." Mm-hmm. And I think that was a pretty valuable lesson. Mm-hmm. So from there, it ultimately became about how can I ask these people to essentially part ways with their money in an authentic manner. Yeah. So for me,
I'm sure you've experienced this where as an individual, if you know that you're selling a good product or service and you're not lying and you're not misleading and you're going to get, the results that you can say you can get, and you're going to deliver the best possible experience that you can deliver to your customers, then you're coming from, you have you can now, you don't have to feel bad. You know what I mean? It's something that absolutely. You're the kind of person these people actually want to buy from. They want to spend money. They want solutions. And, exactly. So if you don't do that, then the pushy asshole scammer is going to be doing it. And exactly. in a sense, you're almost doing people a disservice. I think if you're not like not being hyper aggressive about it, but like you're saying, do a good job, educate them, give them all the information they need to make the decision, and then give them a nudge and just say, look, here it all is. If this is making sense to you, sign up now. You know what I mean? Spots are limited. I only can take on so many clients. Exactly. But it's true.
Is the truth.
It's true. So you don't have to just make shit up and have fake counters all over the place and say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and for the longest time, in the same way that I was doing with social media, I just saw email marketing as another opportunity to create more content. So when I first began doing it, that's all I was doing, just sending out more content. I used my social media channels to be like, hey, I'm sending out this, new article. It's only going out to my list though. So if you want to grab it, it's cool. It's yours for free. You just need to make sure you sign up.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what that has done has allowed me, in hindsight, to build a marketing list like an amateur. But get me to a point where now I have a fair few people on my list who I can send stuff to and ultimately sell to.
Yep.
People marvel at these big numbers on social media, but when push comes to shove, I would take a tenth of the following being on email.
Yeah.
Rather than social media. I think the best way to put that.
That's you're 100% right. Like on my social media, I don't know, maybe across my platforms, I might have a couple 100,000 people max, but I have close to 400,000 people now on my lists, and it's going to be 1 million by the end of the year. And those are warm lists that we email regularly. So you're 100% right if you're looking at it in terms of bottom line results. And I don't think just money, but I think like staying engaged with your following and just having your finger on the pulse of your people. You can't, email, you just can't beat it. I still get, I still spend time every day answering emails from people, and it's just I really like it for multiple reasons, not just selling stuff.
Absolutely. And I think if you think about it logically, Instagram or the way that the Instagram feed works now is a little bit different to what it was, but you could liken it to putting up a message in a shopping center on a notice board that just sort of sits in one corner. And some people might walk past it.
Yeah.
They might walk past a couple of times. Facebook is a little bit different too, because they've got all these algorithms in play. You might put that message up on a notice board, but that notice board moves around the shopping center, which means some people might see it 10 times and other people probably won't see it at all.
Yep.
Whereas an email marketing list gives you the opportunity to get that message and just stick it in someone's pocket so that they can open it and read it whenever they want, So it's invaluable as far as getting your message out there is concerned. And as you said, conversing with your people, because it gives them the opportunity to read that message whenever they want. There's no sort of time limit on it like there is with social media.
Yeah.
And I think something that I didn't answer before, going back to the question you asked, was what is my message? How do I see things compared to other people in the industry? And for me, it's all about training and nutrition and a lifestyle with personal preference, practicality, and sustainability in mind, without neglecting enjoyment.
Yeah.
For me, there's a lot of people out there preaching like you have to eat this, you have to train this way, you have to do certain ridiculous things. And, more and more in the fitness industry these days, we see those extremes come to play.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of people, particularly the ones starting out, see that if they aren't able to do that extreme, then they mustn't be able to. Exactly. Yeah. They might not as well even try.
Yeah.
So for me, because of the way that I guess I ended up getting to where I am through training and nutrition, I feel quite strongly about the way that there's a lot of people out there that are giving the wrong message, in that you don't have to be quite so strict. You don't have to be so damn extreme in order to look the way you want.
Yeah.
And, obviously there's a lot of people out there bagging flexible dieting and if it fits your macros, again, because of those extremists that take it to the, the far end of the scale and they only eat protein shakes and Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
But if we can use the science behind that to our advantage and make intelligent decisions regarding the food we eat, then this whole long-term training and nutrition thing becomes ultimately very simple, rather than this complex, I don't know what to do, is this the right thing to take, should I be eating this, when should I take this? It goes out the window. If we focus on the why, why things happen, why we lose weight, why we gain weight, then all of a sudden the actual process of doing that becomes so much easier.
Totally.
And for me, that's always been my message. That's why I post photos of me sitting in front of 5 burgers, because you know what? If you want to eat 5 burgers every so often, there are ways you can actually get away with that without gaining 4 kilos,
Totally. Absolutely. I mean, those are all the things that I talk about all the time in my work, and absolutely agree on all counts. Something we were talking about before we started recording, I thought would be worth diving into, and that is how much work actually goes in behind the scenes to produce what people see. Just in terms of your social media, not even talking about all the rest of your business that you have to do. I think that's worth just discussing, just to give people a little behind the scenes. Because things always look way easier when you're on the outside looking in, and you're like, yeah, how fucking hard is that? It's just he just like, I don't know, he pulled his shorts up and took his shirt off and took a picture and moved on with his life, right? I mean,
yeah, and you know what? Sometimes that is the case.
Sure.
But yeah, more often than not, I mean, social media is very time consuming, particularly the way I try to do things. I think one of the most important things you can do is engage with the people that follow you. I see a lot of accounts, particularly with a lot of followers, post their stuff, and they never, ever engage with anybody that likes their photos or comments on their photos. And I just think, if it weren't for the people that are actually engaging with your stuff, you wouldn't be where you are. So I always try and engage as much as possible with the people that do follow me, and that in itself is a seriously time-consuming process, particularly considering for the most part you can't actually do it on a computer. You need to sit on your phone and...
I assume do you use, might as well throw it out there, do you have any apps that help you with that? Like web apps, Iconosquare, for example, is not bad for managing comments to some. I mean, I think it's like limited in terms of it's like your last X days or posts or something. But
yeah, to be honest, I've actually shied away from those because I've heard some horror stories in the past where Instagram in particular is very ruthless in regards to use of third-party applications. So I just sort of turned away from like
whatever, people have lost their accounts and stuff over it.
Correct. Yeah.
So then you should probably, I mean, that also then would include like those things that go out and like stuff for you and whatever. I mean, I'm honestly not super familiar with it. I just know that's out there.
Yeah, I know that's out there too, and I would absolutely recommend you stay away from that. I'm pretty sure the way that the Instagram guidelines are set up so that
I mean they don't want that, I'm sure.
No, if they find that, I'm pretty sure they just shut your account straight up.
Okay.
And the only reason I know that is because my girlfriend's actually had her account disabled twice now in the last 4 weeks, even for violating the community guidelines. So I'm quite wary of what they say in there. She didn't do anything wrong, by the way. She got her account back. But I mean, obviously, social media does take a long time.
So give people a little snapshot. Like, where does that time? So there's time in. Obviously responding to people that comment on, I mean, as many as you can probably on images. Do you go like, what's your routine? What does it look like? What works for you?
Yeah. Okay. It's cool. So typically my average day, I would get up and clear my email inbox or get as close as possible to doing that. And then from there, my time would probably be spent on creating and scheduling a newsletter for that day if I'm going to do it. And then from there, my attention typically turns to social media. There was a time in the past where I tended to prioritize social media above other things. And I think as a learning experience, if anything has taught me anything, it's, you need to make sure that you're looking after the people that are actually paying you before the people that are simply just absorbing your free stuff and probably never going to give you a dime. So for me, that's the way I tend to work things now. Typically, the content that I put out will, align with a certain experience that has happened to me at the time, or I may look at doing some sort of series type thing. I won't sort of reveal that series, but I'll know in my head like where the direction is going. At the moment, I tend to only post once a day on Instagram. simply to try and keep it more relevant and more scarce.
That's funny. I mean, that's still like that's good, right? I mean, I'm coming from like I'm the dude that won't post for like 2 weeks, which is yes, it's terrible, but
I think you need to post regularly enough to stay relevant.
Course. Like, were you doing more than once a day previously?
Yeah, I used to do up to 2 or 3 a day.
Okay.
But ultimately,
so I mean, actually, just legitimately asking. So, would you kind of plan that out, even like in advance? Would you kind of look at and even whether it's by the week or by the month, even, and say, okay, so we avoid posting the same kind of shit over and over. What are we going to do? We're going to do this week, it was a brainstorm thing, or did you just go off the cuff, like, hey, I'm doing this right now, picture, I'm doing that right now, picture?
To be honest, I've tried both. Okay. And for me, the off the cuff works far better. Simply because, I mean, there may come times where all of a sudden I have a great bunch of thoughts, but whenever I have a great thought, I tend to write it down at the time.
Okay.
Without necessarily scheduling it.
So for you, it's more about the thought and so you're talking more about what the caption is than the visual? Yeah.
So most of the time the visual is, I mean, realistically, largely irrelevant.
Yeah.
You obviously
like, I thought honestly it was the other way around, that it was more about just having kind of pretty pictures. And
yeah, ultimately, I mean, you want to make sure that every picture is as good as possible. Sure. And there are certain photos that I'll take and I just think I can never really post that, just because I know that no one's going to engage with it. Yeah. And as I said, I did try the whole, like, okay, I'm going to start scheduling posts and like creating stuff for the future, but particularly with the length of some of my content, like, it just became impossible to sort of sit down and think, all right, I'm going to do 10 posts right now. It's like, that'll take me 6 hours. It's not going to happen. So for me, I tend to, as I said, I wing it somewhat, but I obviously dedicate time each day to creating said content.
Sure.
And now it's to the point where if I don't get that time, I probably won't post, simply because I don't really see any.
That's kind of like posting. What I've, again, it's just, I've not, I mean, sometimes I'm a little better than other times, but if I'm not posting for a week or so, it's just because I feel the same way, where I'm like, I don't know. I'm sitting here in my office. Like, I'm holed up like a hermit for the next week. I don't even know. So I'm just going to post nothing. I don't have anything. I don't know.
I know. Yeah, no, I get that too.
I work out by myself. So I do a selfie in the mirror like everyone else. Like, I don't even care.
I know. But, like, on that note, I would urge everyone to sort of try both approaches and see what works for you.
Sure.
I know a few friends that do similar sort of things to me, that they love to sit down and just schedule everything. So they know that when the time comes, all they're going to do is copy paste, select the appropriate picture and go from there.
Yeah.
And if you have the time to do that, maybe that's going to work way better for you. But I think with Instagram in particular, simply because Instagram these days tends to be more of a blog of what's sort of happening at the moment, I tend to find it's hard to schedule those sorts of things. Facebook obviously is very, very easy to schedule posts in the future, and there will be times where I certainly do that. Particularly considering my following on Facebook tends to be all over the world, so I want to try and cater for different time zones. But to be honest, I use Facebook more now as a bit of a hub, which sort of connects to every piece of social media. So I'll upload things from Instagram through Facebook, and then, upload links to YouTube videos and upload actual videos straight into Facebook to try and keep some content native.
Just like kind of like a centralized, this is everything that's going on.
Exactly. Like it's like the RSS feed type thing. It just pulls from everything.
Right.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I'm still talking like anywhere from 1 to 2 hours a day, just trying to figure out and think about what I want to post, and then actually getting that content together. There will be times where maybe I am able to just literally score a quick snap, and then shit, I can use that. Awesome. Let's use that. But yeah, for the most part, if I'm trying to create meaningful content, there'll be research into it, and I'll make sure that I've got more often than not, I'll make sure I've got a research article or a journal behind it, just because I don't want to be in a position where a troll has me on the ropes. Which is happened in the past. It's a learning experience as well. Don't post stuff that maybe isn't 100% fact, because someone
just because you like read it in a YouTube comment, you're like, that's probably not
exactly. If you can't defend what you're posting, then you shouldn't be posting it. And as I said, I learned that the hard way. But I mean, it certainly takes a lot of time. That every situation I'm in now, I think, is there a photo opportunity here? Because if so, like
that's a good point too. So I was going to ask you, does it get there where you're like, now it's like in the back of your head basically?
Yeah, man.
It's almost like you have the eye of a photographer in a sense. Like, where's the picture opportunity? Where's the
Yeah, and I think things like Snapchat and Instagram stories have sort of helped that, because a lot more people are now sort of, essentially vlogging on the go all the time. Yeah. And so, you get your Snapchat out, you're doing your thing, and I find Snapchat tends to work the best if you sort of update it fairly regularly, so every hour or two, to make sure you're sort of staying at the top of that feed and people are constantly engaging with what you're posting. But as a consequence, like, you're also looking for, okay, if I'm like constantly taking photos and constantly taking videos of myself, like what else could look good or good enough that I could actually share that on my story as well, on my feed as well.
Yeah. Can you do that? Can you share from like Snapchat or Insta story?
Not directly, but if you post something to Snapchat, you can obviously save it and then repost it at a later date.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, but the way that social media works now is obviously you've got all of what, particularly on Instagram, all of maybe 3 seconds to engage with somebody as they scroll.
Yeah.
So chances are I would probably now, I rarely post an iPhone photo. In that I would rather use the camera that I bought specifically to take beautiful pictures to post those photos, because the cleaner and the clearer and the more crisp those photos look, I mean, the better chance you have of somebody engaging with it. So,
and what camera? Just so people, I mean, it's probably more expensive, like DSLR. Is there a more inexpensive one that you used along the way that you liked, or?
Yeah, so I first started off with a Sony A5100, I think, which was just a small compact thing. But now I use a Sony A7 Mark II.
Okay.
Which
more professional type deal.
Yeah. So it cost me a couple of grand. But
when the first one was a few $100s or something.
Yeah, first one was like $300 or $400.
Yeah,
I think. And obviously,
but I mean, it's a good point, and that's something even Corey, who handles social media for Legion. I mean, I like that from a business perspective. Social media is great, and she does a very good job. And she's like super into social media. She wants me to be better and do more of social media. We actually just need to get someone to help her at this point. Take some of the workload, some of the stuff you're talking about, the time intensive stuff of engaging with people, and there's just no way to really shortcut it. Take that off of her plate, and then she wants to get more involved in my stuff. But that was one of her things. Is she's like, all right, so I'm going to start coming to the gym with you with a fucking camera, and we're going to get some real pictures. So we've done that a few times, and that's like a thing now. She's like, no more phone pictures. We're going to get real pictures.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. And, now I've got a videographer that I work with.
Oh, nice.
And, the good thing is I actually sort of was able to mold him, because he didn't have any experience with a camera, but he has spent a lot of his time training, so he sort of knows more about like the angles that would work, and about the stuff that I'm doing, so that he can sort of think about what would look best.
Yeah.
But now it's to the point where he'll be like, dude, hold that pose, and he'll just like all of a sudden be like, snap 5 photos, and then all of a sudden maybe I've got 5 photos for the next, that I could use over the space of the next 5 weeks. You probably wouldn't use five
sure
one day after the other, but
yeah,
I mean that obviously helps. And having a girlfriend that's also involved with social media helps as well, because if we're both out and we'll just be like, hey, I think this would be a good photo, can you take it?
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately, you can never have enough content. Even if you think it's going to be a crappy photo, take it anyway, just in case, because you never know, it might be fire. Sometimes the best photos are those spur of the moment ones. I remember one time I was traveling in the US. I'd never been to Chipotle, and I finally decided, I was like, I'm just going to go check out Chipotle. And so I literally asked a passerby, I think it was like this old guy, like 60-year-old man. I was like, mate, would you mind taking a quick photo? And I just literally like front double bicep out the front of Chipotle. And I was like, no longer a Chipotle virgin. It went like semi-viral. It was ridiculous, like that sort of stuff. Like,
yeah, who would have known? For you, you were just value. Like, yeah, whatever, fuck it, right here. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Adds no value, but at the same time, people are like, yeah, it's pretty funny. Like, I'll engage with that, and that continues to build a relationship. It shows people who you are.
Yeah.
It gives them a bit of an insight into how you tick, sort of thing. So I think those things are important too, and. Going back to that, I think if you pretend to be someone that you probably aren't on social media, that's probably going to come out sooner rather than later. So if you can be as realistic and as relatable as possible, and allow your own personality to shine through in the content that you put out, ultimately, I think the following that you build is going to be far more engaged and far more interested long term as well. I think you see a lot of people Particularly, I don't know how in tune you are with social media. There were a few guys sort of exposed not too long ago for being sort of less than real. And
like
also
the shreds guys or something else.
Yeah.
I saw, what was it? It was like, I saw something about a coaching service that was like bullshit. And then it was like a bunch of photoshopping and stuff.
Yeah. Ultimately, if you're going to do that, it's going to bite you in the ass sooner or later.
Yeah.
So, and on that note, a lot of people, I think, look at social media and think like, oh, well, I don't quite look the way that I want to look yet, so it's probably not for me.
Right.
And, honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth, because I can tell you now the posts that get the most engagement on my page are not the ones where I look the leanest or the biggest or the most jacked or have the biggest pump.
So what are they then? Yeah. What's in your, like, what do you say? What are the ones that generally get the most engagement?
The ones where I am being as real and as honest as possible.
And now, can you give an example? Like, how does that manifest? So you have like Chipotle as an example. That's you just kind of being goofy.
That was crap. Yeah. But
well, no, but still, if that's an element of your personality, if you're kind of like a playful dude and you're just kind of messing around, I mean, it's something,
absolutely. Right? Absolutely, yeah.
And people appreciate people that don't take themselves super seriously. So I think that's like it maybe shows a little bit of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the best thing you can be is relatable. Yeah. People should be able to look at you and think, shit, this dude is real. Like I go through that. Like I think that, he thinks that. Like
so there's a bit of almost vulnerability
where he is. Sorry,
I was saying there's a bit of like vulnerability almost of
absolutely
of showing who you really are, and that makes sense.
So like recently I put up a post about talking about the way that I first felt when I first started training. And it's just it's not groundbreaking stuff. It's probably the same sort of stuff that everybody thinks about when they first start to train. Like, I don't feel like I belong here.
Yeah.
But when people hear that, I've been through that, considering that I'm now sort of considered to be this like, figure that has obviously spent some time in the gym, to feel that, to hear that I've actually been through those initial, sort of feelings as well. I think people can relate to that far better and think, well, hang on, maybe we aren't too dissimilar. Maybe I can get to where he is.
Yeah.
Because he used to be where I am right now. And, the first time I started to learn this was, I did a series of posts where I posted a picture of myself, shirt off, not flexed, and shirt off, flexed. And I was like, just so you guys know, like, when most of us take photos on social media, we know the photo is being taken. Like, we are doing our very best to make sure that we are looking
as good as possible,
as incredible as possible. Yeah. So, but like, what you need to understand is that you can aspire to look that way, but understand that I don't look that way 100% of the time.
Yeah. For a moment in time at the right angle with the right lighting, you too.
Exactly. So literally I posted a photo. I was like, this is what I look like every day. Unflexed versus flexed. Yep. No pump, no lighting, no angles, no photo editing.
Yep.
This is just what I look like. If you run into me in the street, the picture on the left is what you're going to see.
Yeah.
If you meet me in the gym half an hour later, I might look a little bit more like the one on the right. But I can tell you now, I do not look like the one on the right, nor does anyone on social media look like the photos that they post on the right, unless they're A, jabbing very hard, or B, lying to you. It just doesn't work like that. And I think aligning people's expectations and being honest and open and real with people is where it's at. And I think another testament to that, my girlfriend does a lot of social media stuff too. Her following isn't quite as big as mine, but it is probably 3 times more engaged than mine is. And because she is like arguably the realest account on Instagram, she talks about a lot of her insecurities and how she feels day to day, and relates a lot of that back to fitness.
Girls are good at that.
Oh, dude, she's incredible at it. And ultimately, she's been responsible for sort of helping me with that whole showing vulnerability thing, because
I mean, it's you see so much image crafting, right, on social media, and you have so much where, I mean, we all know those people that we know in real life, and we look at their social media and we're like, what the fuck is this person? Like, this is so not this person at all. I mean, the best example for me is some guy. He's just it's a guy I just know. I wouldn't say he's a friend, just some dude. I know his name. I'd say hi if I knew him or if I saw him, kind of thing. And his whole thing on social media is to pretend like he's rich. And he's not. He's just a normal dude, but he has befriended various rich people, and he has this game going where like he'll go in that dude's Lamborghini and take a picture like of him driving his friend's car, but pretend, or he'll go to the watch store and try on the Patek Philippe and take the picture as if, and then like I'd be like, yo fam, should I get the fucking whatever this is, you know, the I don't even know the name of the watches, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and that's like, that's this dude. It's actually at this point, it's a mental illness, in my opinion. But but that's an extreme example. But there's a lot of that. So you're very much about doing the opposite, and it sounds like positioning yourself against that and just saying, "Hey, if this is how I live, and if and I'm trying to help you, and if that resonates with you, then follow me. If this is not, you know, if we don't jive, then you know, hey, that's cool. But this is who I am."
Absolutely. You know, he's like a better approach for him would be, like, today I got to drive in a Lamborghini. Yeah. Like, for me, this is my number one goal. Yeah. I hope like hell that one day I can work hard enough to earn enough money to justify being able to buy this car. Yeah. It was awesome to be in it today and to know like what it feels like, but this is not yet mine. And like, I mean, like, so many more people can relate to that, you know, like who doesn't want a Lamborghini? Yeah. Like, I want a Lamborghini, but you know, but like at the same time, I also don't want to post about owning one unless I own one. You know, like I don't see any point to that. That's just ridiculous. I mean,
I think it's better to transcend. I think it's better to be at the point where you don't even care and you don't need the Lamborghini. That's
exactly. Well, yeah, I think on that regard, obviously, there's you know, life is all about priorities. Sure. And so if you know, tangible items at one point or another are one of yours, then you know, you should chase that. But you're right. You know, like there are a lot of things that are more important than those things. I tend to think of them like, I'll be honest. I love the idea of driving and buying a Lamborghini because I do see that as a ticket or as a you know, a tangible representation of success. Mm-hmm. But more so because I know how much money they cost and the sort of shit that you would need to have in order before you could even think about trying to buy one. So for me, there's a lot of steps.
So then I would ask you though, why do you want to have people look at you and be like, oh, that dude's successful? 100% curious. Like if we're talking about Lamborghinis, I'm actually curious.
No, okay. I should be clearer. Do I want people to think that I'm successful? I don't really care if they think I'm successful. For me now, certainly not in the past. Absolutely. I used to see a car like a Lamborghini as a, hey, look at me. Hey, look how successful I am.
Yeah. Like, don't you wish you were me? Like, look at this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I first started social media, going back to that whole, those guys have a lot of followers. That seems like a cool thing. Yeah. Story. I think now for me it's more of a representation of my own hard work.
Oh, okay. So for yourself it's something.
Absolutely.
I see. And also, I mean, some people are really into cars. I understand that too. Like if someone's really into cars, and that's like my wife, she's really into fashion. She'll spend amounts of money on things that make no sense to me, honestly. But it makes her so happy, and it's not about showing off. She's not one of those girls like, oh, look at my Chanel bag, I'm so cool. She just genuinely loves, like for her own, for whatever reason, it just fills her with joy. And so I know I'm even like semi jealous. I'm like, I can't get joy that easy. I can't just go buy something and be like, you know, filled with just have my heart, you know, exploding. But some people, for them, that's the Lamborghini because they just love cars. There's something to it where it's not about, you know, again, signaling your importance to other people, but it's just like for them, that's to drive that car. They're just like a smile. They can't get the smile off their face, and so you know, I understand that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, and that's I mean, for me, that would be the epitome. I mean, I've always loved my cars, so that's that would be cool.
I understand from that perspective.
As I said, there are certainly other things that are far more important than that. And you know, if that ends up becoming an opportunity in the future because everything else is aligned, cool. But if not, then I'm going to continue to focus on aligning everything else first.
Totally. All right. So I have a last question for you. I know we're the conversation's going, but I mean, I don't like to have a hard stop. Like if it's a good conversation, I usually just kind of let it roll. But I have one more question. So in terms of building your following, so I think you've shared a ton of great information on how to serve your crowd and and how to more from a strategic perspective on how to go about social media, and I think it's a great overall strategy. I'm just curious if there have been some more tactical things that have served you well for growing your following. So you mentioned engaging with as much as you can with your followers. That makes total sense. I'm just curious if there are any other specific things because I'm sure you've tried a lot of things, paid things, free things, whatever, advertising, blah, blah, blah. I'm just curious, what do you say is like the 20% that has given you 80%,
Yeah. I think there are a few things. Obviously, you need to make sure you're posting good quality content. You need to give people a reason to follow you, as I said earlier on. If you can encourage people to share it with their friends as well. Obviously, you can't get people to share directly through things like Instagram or Snapchat, but you can certainly ask people to do that on things like Facebook.
So actually, call to action asking for it. Like, if you liked it, please share it kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you are in the position where you can give them something for free to do that, then do that. Yeah. I used to put out a lot of call to actions on Facebook exactly like that. There would be a few when I first began to simply try and increase engagement, because ultimately the more people that are engaging with your stuff on Facebook means the more people end up going to see it, which means in future when you post something that you might be able to get back, more people will see that. So I used to, put up like, if I get X amount of likes, then I'll give you guys a free workout, or if this video gets to X amount of likes or shares or whatever, then I'll post 3 more just like it, or anything like that. Tag of friends are a great thing too. Tag a friend, and if you tag the most friends or whatever it is, then I'll give you my free 12-week training program.
Something,
whatever.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, I like that. That makes sense. Simple and works. And
yeah, if I had my time again, I would create more free products. As we were talking about before we started recording, people love free stuff, and I think the more free content that you have, particularly if you make it really good, market it in a way, absolutely. That's a great point. If your free content is good, just imagine what you'll get when you pay for my content.
That's a powerful psychological thing that a lot of people overlook, because they'll think like, oh, it's free, it doesn't have to be that good, right? No, wrong, because there's a lot of free stuff out there. Like, I would flip that around and say, okay, look at all your stuff, and what's your best, juiciest content? Make that free.
Absolutely.
And you've set a standard now that you have to meet, but you can create that effect now where a person downloads a free whatever, and they're expecting it's like the same shit that every, whatever. And then they're like, oh, wow, this is like way better than I thought it was going to be. That's powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, as I was saying, if I had my time again, I would create more free products to entice more people in. And then, getting people to engage, asking people, you need to be able to ask people, even if it is just tag a friend or like this post or whatever.
Or do you ask for comments, like, what do you guys think and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Like pose questions to them or not really?
I found those, unless you have a seriously highly engaged following and people really care about like what's going on, I think certain people can get away with that, but for the most part, like simply asking like, what did you do today? Or
no, not necessarily like that. I mean, I was thinking
what do you think?
Because it sounds like you put this time into this content. Let's say you're expounding on an idea and you're sharing your kind of like, this is what I think about it. What do you guys? I don't know. I'm just asking from.
No, of course. I would certainly get people to share a friend or maybe share their experiences. Absolutely.
Okay.
Or even if you just get just a very simple question with a yes/no answer or whatever, just to get people engaging with your stuff.
And can you quickly explain to everybody why that's important, even from like an algorithm standpoint? Like, it's not just about getting, looking cool that you got 100 comments on your. I think there's something to say with the individuals, like the psychology of that and the consistency that it builds. That the more they engage with you, the more subconsciously it tells them that they like you, kind of thing. And then the algorithm.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. So, that's a great point, as well as them obviously seeing that you're a real person. You're not just a robot. You're not just posting stuff and letting whatever will be.
Is there also something algorithmically too that like? Yeah, I actually don't even know 100%. I assume there is, but that's why I'm asking. Like,
so I don't think anyone's cracked the code, so to speak.
Sure.
It certainly seems like the more people that engage with you,
The more your stuff gets served in general.
Absolutely. Like it's not impossible for something, if it gets, highly engaged with, particularly early on, for it to all of a sudden just go viral, and the way that the algorithm seems to work is the more people that like and comment on it, particularly early on, the more people will tend to end up seeing it, which ultimately results
so that means post times
more
matter.
And more engagement. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing. For me now, I tend to post at the same time every day, simply because I know
that makes sense.
I know that from personal experience, posting around certain times tends to receive more engagement.
Yeah.
And whilst I think it is important every so often to sort of experiment so that you aren't always reaching the same followers for the most part.
So that might be like if you were going to post twice a day, intentionally space those out so you're reaching different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And until you figure out sort of when those times are in terms of the best ones to post, continue experimenting, see which ones go really well at what times. And then if you can replicate that and see if there's a trend or anything like that.
Right.
I think Instagram now even give you insights into when most of your followers are online. For some reason, I haven't got that yet, but
I've seen it on mine. I don't know. It's like, I think they call it insights actually. I don't know. I'm sure you've upgraded yours to like a business page, right? So people that has like a contact button.
I did that temporarily, but I lost the ability to upload directly to my Facebook page as a consequence. So I just turned it back. But you're right. Like you can look at insights through that sort of stuff. So yeah, by all means do that. Don't take them as gospel. You still want to play around with that. I know my girlfriend sort of had some issues at times with her timings or the suggestions through that. But yeah, I mean, ultimately you want to give yourself every opportunity of getting as much engagement as possible. So if you think about the reason that maybe you would comment on something, or maybe that you would engage with something, think about those sorts of reasons and then try and give your followers those exact reasons to do the same.
Engineer your own psychology, basically, of what,
exactly.
You just went and liked something. Why?
Exactly, right. The most of the time I will like or comment on something when I think it's either super impressive, super cool, or really relatable, or something about it stands out. So if you can always try and think about doing that and appealing to somebody's sense of whatever it is that you're trying to appeal to, chances are you'll get more and more engagement. And then if you can further engage them in conversation, even better.
Yeah.
Rather than just hitting with a comment saying thank you, just going, thanks very much, I'm really glad you enjoyed that. Is there anything else you'd like to see? Because ultimately more and more comments is going to help you with that algorithm and getting you up in the feed. So
yeah, that's great.
Plus too, it's probably going to mean that person in future is going to be more likely to engage with you because they thought, well, hey, he entertained me last time. Like if I've got a question
and engage and took his time to actually say something to me. I mean, especially when the wow effect of that grows. It seems. I mean, I've seen not so much social media. I mean, I do the same thing. My social media following is just much smaller than yours, but I've seen it more with email and so forth, where people they're very surprised to get a reply from me just because they think that like, why, you know what I mean? I understand they're cynical because there's a lot of people, once they achieve a certain level of success or whatever, they're just like, oh, and now I don't care. Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? That's like the standard thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But like to this day, I still respond to every single email that I ever get.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's time consuming, but at the same time, like I know how stoked I used to feel.
Yep.
When I would leave a comment on someone that I deemed to be,
that you admire or whatever,
successful. Yeah, absolutely. And if they hit me back with a comment, it's like, shit, that just made my day.
Yeah.
So if people can do that to me, and I can give them the opportunity to feel like I've made their day, then yeah, I'll do that for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I did the same thing. I mean, it got up to like 4 to 5 hours a day. Actually, every day was just answering emails and social media messages. Yeah. And now I have a couple people that help. I mean, they jump in because a lot of questions that get emailed are very simple. Like I've written so many articles and so many things where that really the answer is like, hey, that's a good question. Just go check out this article. And so one of my coaches, he doesn't answer as me. He answers as himself, but he'll jump in and kind of go through the simpler stuff of like, hey, I'm Roger. I help Mike out. As you can imagine, he gets a ton of emails. Good question. I think this is going to help. And it doesn't have the same effect, but people are still very happy to get a real response. And
Absolutely.
ultimately, if anybody, like we have a little system worked out where things get funneled down, things get through to me that are either directly to me or where if my guys aren't quite sure. And so I still spend time on it every day. It just got to where I was like, I can't spend 5 hours a day doing this anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't want to just drop it. I don't want people to not get responses. I don't want to like not ask for engagement anymore. So that's the new system.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. It's a good one. If it works, then you should definitely keep up with that, because it's important that people continue to get a response, because just you never know how much of an impact that single response could have on their day, even if it's just to give them a smile. They're gonna take that, and it's going to improve their day. So if you can continue doing that, then by whatever means possible, I would suggest you do so, man.
Yeah, a little anecdote I always share is Charles Darwin. It was like for decades. This was after Origin of the Species. This is after Charles Darwin would spend 2 to 3 hours every night replying to people's letters. And so Charles Darwin, exactly if Darwin was willing to do it, who are we to say, like, are we too good for that? Okay.
Exactly right. And at the end of the day, the people that are sort of tuning into these things do so for a reason. So, even if it's just to say, a brief thank you, then that's pretty awesome, I think.
Absolutely. All right, great. Well, I think that's a good point to conclude on. We've covered a lot of stuff, a lot of really good points, and I've learned things, and so I appreciate you taking the time. Personally, I appreciate it. And so let's just end with, where can people find you and your work, and if there's anything in terms of like products or services in particular that you want people to know about that you think would best, where's a good place to start, and then let's let them know.
Yeah, too easy. So I guess first and foremost, Nick Cheadle Fitness on Instagram and Facebook, just the one word. Obviously for Instagram, 3 separate ones for Facebook. NickCheadleFitness.com is my website where I put out most of my blogs, and you can obviously sign up to my mailing list on there if you would appreciate that additional content that I do put out. Snapchat is Nick Cheadle Fit, which gives you a bit more of an insight into that day-to-day stuff, because as we mentioned before, I'm not a huge fan, or not very good at the whole vlogging thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
As far as products go, look,
take my idea and run with it. I'm telling you, it's a good idea. you have a girlfriend. Sure. You guys can pretend like you get together, break up, and you can make.
It's true. Actually, we've joked about that in the past. Actually, we're like, we've got to get some better engagement. Maybe we should fake a breakup.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good idea. Smart.
The only product that I really push now is the one that I'm sort of most proud of that I've created. It's called the If It Fits Your Macros Bible. We had a bit of a name change there, cool. Which is basically the book that I wrote to try and educate people on how to diet more sustainably, more enjoyably, essentially make their life less about dieting and more about actually enjoying themselves whilst also looking the way that they want to look. So you can actually grab that on my website as well, nickcheadlefitness.com, and it's pretty cheap. It's not very expensive at all. So
cool.
If it should answer every question.
Call to action. Go get it.
That's it. It's super cheap. It sort of takes you through the whole process of dieting, basically everything you should ever need to know. It took me sort of about 12 months to write, because I wanted to try and make sure I covered every aspect of dieting, from not knowing what a calorie is to figuring out your macros and how to track appropriately and figure all those things out in between, like what sort of style of dieting might work for you, as well as how to carb cycle or what supplements do I need. All that sort of stuff's in there. So if you have any nutrition related questions, chances are you can probably find the answer in there.
Okay, great. Well, everybody, I recommend follow Nick. As you can see, he's a cool guy, a real guy. I'm kind of picky with the guests I have on the show, because I want to have people on that I feel okay introducing my crowd to, and that they won't be led astray. So as always, this is an endorsement of you and of your work. I like what you're doing, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you again, and that's a wrap.
Too easy, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.